What's up? It's your boy Kevin to turn on this motherfucking YouTube shit. Wow, what the fuck?
What's up? It's your boy Kevin to on YouTube shit. Hey man, we are lit, eh? Lit that man. Turn. Today, it's motherfucking day. You're hooding outside. Big crip in it. Gang, you're hooding outside shit, man. Free Palestine, free Congo, Russia, do your thing, and take your stand the fuck up. Each day is ready to be a better version of yourself. Never let somebody bring you down, I'll start back. Never let somebody tell you are, also put yourself in a position of belong. Stay humble. It's going to revolution on the movement. Keep Yahweh first. Coming to the Black Hebrew Israelite. As a real Jew, we out here. Alright. Boom. Today, it's motherfucking day. You're hooding outside. Big crip in it. Gang, you're hooding outside shit, man. Gang, so little Durk, man, the thing about little Durk, man, is, you know, he did what he had to do. You know what I'm saying? In the whole situation of how it went down, you know, King Von passing, little Pat passing, it's just, you know, crip. A lot of situations that kind of forced his hand to where, man, he kind of crashed out. So in this video, man, we're going to talk about how is he doing in jail. You know what I'm saying? How is he living in jail? How is his conditions going to be? Who the people going to be around him, like the inmates and stuff. And OTF little jail. Then also, we're going to talk about, we got paperwork part. Now we have the paperwork about he was trying to get a bond. You know what I'm saying? And I guess in this one they rejected his bond. So we're gonna see what did his attorney do to try to fight for him to get the bond, and what the court is trying to say that he did to where he can't get the bond. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know how it's going to go down for Lil Durk right now, man. We just waiting to see if we can get any more information about his case and his court and what really went down, you know, about him dip. The main reason they trying to say they don't really want to do this shit is because he was trying to dip, allegedly. You know what I'm saying, with the planes and shit. So we have the video. Let's get into it. Look at the Lil Durk case, man.
Walls. Lil Durk's life has taken a wild turn in the last 5 months. The feds got him locked inside MDC Los Angeles as he awaits trial on RICO-style charges the feds hit him with. They're saying Durk put money on a rival's head, and if he's found guilty, the rapper's looking at a long life behind bars. No parole, no way out. But before his trial comes up, what's it really like for the OTF leader behind bars? Lil Durk's life in prison. Lil Durk was living the high life. Multi-million-dollar mansions, luxury cars,
Lil Durk was living it up.
A career that had him sitting at the top of the rap game. But in the blink of an eye, all of that was stripped away. Now, instead of waking up to ocean views and designer sheets, he's opening his eyes to the cold, dimly lit walls of the Metropolitan Detention Center in Los Angeles. Durk, real name Durk Derek Banks, was arrested on October 24th and initially locked up at the Miami Federal Detention Center. But this wasn't just another run-in with the law. This time, the feds were coming down with full force. He wasn't facing a minor charge. He was hit with a superseding indictment tying him to an alleged murder-for-hire plot that ended in bloodshed. The case revolved around the August 2022 killing of Lil Pa, Quando Rondo's cousin, in what prosecutors claim was a targeted hit. As the charges piled up, conspiracy, possession of firearms, and orchestrating a murder-for-hire, the government made one thing clear. They weren't letting Durk walk away from this easily. His legal team threw everything at the judge, offering up a $3 million bond package, but the courts weren't budging. They denied his bail, stating that he was too much of a risk. The decision shattered any hope of temporary freedom, leaving Durk stuck behind bars until trial. November 3rd, 13th, he was quietly transferred to MDC Los Angeles, where he now waits, locked in with some of his closest OTF affiliates, Kayvon Cuz Grant, DeAndre D.D. Wilson, Keith Flacca Jones, and Asa Boogie Houston, all of whom are facing the same serious charges. They once ran the streets together, but now they're locked in a high-security facility, their futures hanging in the balance. If Durk thought MDC LA would be any easier than Miami, he was mistaken. MDC isn't your typical prison. It doesn't have iron bars or the eerie, dungeon-like look of
Nigga
an
making a
old-school
mean
penitentiary.
spread in that
Don't be fooled by the
motherfucker.
modern design.
No,
Inside,
he probably
it's
got
every man for himself.
100,000
The
on his
facility built in
books, nigga.
1988 was designed to hold pretrial detainees, meaning it houses criminals awaiting trial rather than those serving long-term sentences. But with overcrowding and staffing shortages, the prison has become a dangerous battleground. Unlike state prisons, where inmates are segregated by security levels, MDC LA is a mixed bag. You've got drug lords, violent offenders, high-profile criminals, and gang leaders all under one roof. And when you put that many powerful men in one confined space, it's a recipe for chaos. Violence is a daily occurrence. There's no telling when a fight might break out, when tempers might
Shit, that's how it was when I was in jail, bitch.
There's no such thing as
Nigga, all we did was fight in that bitch.
Lil Durk might be one of the biggest rappers in the world, but to some of these inmates, he's just another target.
That's a
Adding to
fact.
the danger is the presence of smuggled contraband. Multiple guards at MDC
They think how they can get the
indicted
men,
for
the
sneaking
M's.
in drugs, weapons, and cell phones for the right price. Corrupt officers are turning a blind eye, allowing criminal networks inside the prison to thrive. For someone like Durk, who's already got a target on his back due to his rap career and gang affiliations, one wrong move could put him in the crosshairs. The prison itself is in rough shape. Inmates have described the facility as neglected, with broken equipment, deteriorating living conditions, and endless delays for repairs. Even basic necessities can take months to be addressed, making everyday life frustrating and unpredictable. Being locked up with his OTF affiliates might seem like an advantage, but in the world of the feds, loyalty is never guaranteed. Pressure makes people crack, and when the stakes are this high, even the closest bonds can be tested.
Man,
Durk and
ain't
his
no
crew aren't
loyalty,
just sitting
bitch.
around playing cards, they're fighting for their lives. The feds have built a strong case, and as trial approaches,
Them
tension is
niggas getting
only
that
growing.
10
The possibility of informants,
reduced to
videos, and
5 or
betrayals looms
20
over
reduced
every
to 15.
conversation. Nobody
Shit.
wants to be the one left holding the bag, and when federal charges come into play, the sentence reductions for snitching can be tempting. It's also unclear how much direct communication Durk has with his co-defendants. In federal lockup, separation tactics are common, keeping co-conspirators apart to prevent them from coordinating stories or influencing testimonies. If the feds suspect any attempts at witness tampering, things could get even worse for Durk. On top of all that, Durk has already caught the attention of prison officials for breaking the rules. According to court filings, he's been caught making unauthorized three-way calls, something explicitly forbidden by MDC regulations. Prosecutors jumped on this, using it as evidence that he can't even follow jailhouse rules. So how could he be trusted to follow the law if released? It was just another nail in the coffin for his bail request. Beyond the physical threats, there's the mental battle. Sitting in a cell, cut off from the outside world, forced to wait while your fate is decided, that does something to a person. Durk, who has built his entire career on survival and resilience, now finds himself in the ultimate test. The prison offers basic mental health services, but for someone like Durk, those resources are limited. Inmates can access crisis intervention and therapy, but group sessions and one-on-one meetings are rare. Most of the time, inmates are left to deal with their thoughts alone. The isolation,
That's a
the
fact.
uncertainty, the constant feeling of being
Nigga,
watched. It's a
everybody trying to
psychological
kill you.
warfare that can break even the strongest mind.
The
Durk's
cops
only
don't give a
escape
fuck.
comes in the form of recreation.
They all
activity.
crooked.
MDC LA
Bitch.
offers basketball,
You
indoor
literally in
games,
motherfucking
ping pong,
Spartan
and
hellhole,
even
bitch.
educational programs for inmates looking to earn their GED.
No matter if you're
But in
guilty
a
or not
place where
guilty.
violence can pop off at any second, relaxation isn't always an option. Even stepping onto the basketball court.
Every time I go to jail, I get into fights,
Despite
nigga.
everything, Durk is keeping his head up, or at least that's what he wants the outside world to believe. A leaked prison phone call from November 15th had him sounding optimistic, telling a friend that he was maintaining high spirits and staying focused on getting back to his family. Just got off the phone with my brother at Lil Durk. He in good spirits, staying positive and fighting to get back home to his kids and family, the Instagram caption read. We not glorifying negativity, we're more than just street guys. We're men of honor and code. But how much of that is real and how much is just a front? No matter how strong you are, prison changes you. The uncertainty of a looming trial, the pressure of a life-altering sentence, the paranoia of wondering who might flip, it all adds up. Durk might be playing it cool on the phone, but behind closed doors, he's facing a war unlike anything he's ever seen before, and the severity of the rapper's case might soon make his jail stay permanent. Current state of Lil Durk's legal cases. Lil Durk's legal troubles have gone from bad to worse since his initial arrest. What started as a murder for hire charge has now evolved into something even more dangerous. He and his OTF associates are facing a full-blown RICO case. If convicted, this could mean
I hit that nigga with the RICO.
No second chances. The feds aren't just looking to to lock Durk up. They're trying to bury him. The first superseding indictment, unsealed in November 2024, lays out a web of conspiracy, violence, and retaliation stretching back years. This isn't just about one crime. The government is painting a picture of Lil Durk as the mastermind of a criminal enterprise, using his Only the Family, OTF, imprint as more than just a rap label. To them, OTF is a well-organized gang responsible for murder, assaults, and racketeering. If there's one thing the feds have perfected over the years, it's using RICO, Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, to take down high-profile figures. This law was originally designed to dismantle the mafia, but now it's being used to target rap collectives and street gangs. The government is accusing Lil Durk of being the ringleader, using his influence and money to order hits, reward violence, and maintain OTF's dominance in the streets. According to the indictment, the case stems from the murder of King Von in 2020. King Von's death wasn't just another tragedy in the drill music world. It set off a chain reaction of revenge, paranoia, and bloodshed. Prosecutors claim that after Von was killed in Atlanta, Durk put out a bounty on those responsible, leading to the August 2022 attack on Quando Rondo's crew in Los Angeles. The feds allege that Durk personally ordered the hit, sending his associates across state lines to track and kill a rival. They have receipts, surveillance footage, intercepted phone calls, text messages, and even lyrics they claim are direct confessions. It's not just circumstantial evidence. The case is built on months of investigation, witness testimony, and cooperation from inside sources. Lil Durk isn't the only one caught up in this legal storm. Several OTF members and close associates are facing similar charges, including Kayvon London Grant, aka Cuz or Vonnie, allegedly played a role in setting up the hit, coordinating logistics and securing weapons. DeAndre Dontrell Wilson, aka Didi, accused of traveling with the crew to Los Angeles for the attack. Keith Jones, aka Flacca, allegedly involved in the actual shooting, pulling the trigger alongside other gunmen. David Brian Lindsay, aka Brown.
Man, they leave a paper trail to all their evidence, bruh. It's like
Asa Houston, aka Boogie, said to have driven the getaway car and helped dispose of evidence. The indictment lists over 25 overt acts, each one a calculated step in what the government claims was an orchestrated murder plot. From buying plane tickets with OTF credit cards to securing
goofy
automatic
shit.
weapons and coordinating movements.
What the
during
fuck would
hidden
you use an
messages.
OTF credit
Every move is
card?
allegedly premeditated. And here's where it gets even worse. The feds aren't just looking to lock these men up for life. They're
That's
also
like the
pursuing
biggest
criminal
trail ever.
forfeiture, which means that if convicted,
Look at
Durk and his
OTF in
co-defendants
it.
could lose their assets, homes, cars, jewelry, even money made from music connected to these crimes. The feds don't just rely on witness statements anymore. They have technology, and they use it well. The FBI reportedly intercepted multiple phone calls between Durk and his crew, many of which were coded conversations that prosecutors say point to a murder-for-hire scheme. One of the biggest pieces of evidence, a conversation where Durk allegedly referenced green lighting a target and later rapped about the killing in one of his songs. The government argues that his lyrics are direct admissions of guilt, something we've seen before in cases like YNW Melly's and Young Thug's RICO trial. Beyond phone taps, the feds used surveillance footage tracking the movement of Durk's crew before and after the shooting, financial records showing payments made before and after the hit, testimony from confidential informants, which raises the possibility that someone inside OTF may have flipped. Initially, many fingers were pointed in the direction of an OTF member named Jam as the informant. A longtime OTF member, Jam had spent over a decade in prison on an attempted murder charge, earning him a reputation as a loyal street soldier. But when he was released in 2022, the whispers started. Claims that he had secretly turned informant, wearing a wire for federal agents and feeding them
Big goofy ass Mickey Mouse looking ass.
This wasn't just speculation.
Ratatouille looking ass.
Provided direct evidence
Tom and
linking
Jerry
Durk
built
to a murder
ass.
for hire plot targeting rapper Rondo. According to Chicago rapper King Yella, Jam even implicated Durk in the murder of Lil Pop, Rondo's cousin, a hit supposedly carried out in retaliation for King Von's death. A video featuring DJ Academics and Chicago-based reporter Trench's News added even more fuel to the fire. In the clip, Trench's News detailed a key moment that may have triggered Jam's cooperation with the feds. Jam's baby mama had allegedly reached out to Durk, asking for help with legal fees, but when Durk brushed her off, Jam took it as a sign of disrespect. "You're not supposed to brush off my call when I need something," Jam reportedly
He
fumed.
gave you
Trench's News
50K.
backed up the claim, saying,
And he
"That's
gave you a
fact.
house and
The industry
cars.
noticed. Whack 100,
What else do you
well-known
fucking
hip-hop
want, you
also
goofy
weighed in
ass
on
nigga?
Jam's street to snitch transformation. He recounted how Jam had once seemed like the definition of loyalty, serving his time without a word.
Damn, these niggas think that you supposed to get them niggas every fucking thing.
Said he kept it real.
Niggas, some niggas don't get shit for doing stuff.
That ain't no smudge on his name. He ain't never been a rat.
The
Caught a gun
fuck?
case. But eventually he flipped, Wack recalled. However, OTF Jam addressed the many allegations of him snitching with a lengthy post in December 2024, where he denied being the snitch. When the discovery come out, you gonna see I'm not how the feds got onto us or built their case. I'ma let the paperwork come out because it's gonna tell it all, he explained. Nonetheless, the prosecution is building a case that Durk wasn't just an artist rapping about street life. He was living it, orchestrating crimes from behind the scenes. Lil Durk's legal battle is about more than just one man.
These niggas think that they supposed to get every fucking thing. Nigga, we understand you put the work in, but nigga, niggas only can do so much. You know what I'm saying?
Conspiracy charges. The difference here is that the feds are involved, and federal cases are nearly impossible to beat. If Durk goes down, it could mark the end of one of the most dominant forces in modern rap. His music, his influence, and his empire, all on the line. Fans are still holding out hope, flooding social media with #free Durk posts. But the reality is grim. Unless something drastic happens, the Chicago rapper who once seemed untouchable is now facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life in a
Your boys put the work in.
The trial hasn't even
Okay, yeah, we helped you. Get the money on.
And when the feds want you, they don't
and then you get out. So you gonna turn
what
rap?
does the future hold for Lil Durk? Time is running out for Lil Durk. What was once a fast-moving trial has now been delayed, giving both the prosecution and defense more time to build their cases. But for Durk, that delay.
That's the thing with Durk though. He shouldn't have counted on some niggas to keep quiet
Growing sense that his fate could
and not paying these niggas, bro.
His murder for hire trial, originally
You got to pay these niggas for life.
2025, has now been pushed back to October 14th, 2025. A move that hints at just how complex and high stakes this case really
is. They pushed it back.
230 GB of digital evidence, 20,000 pages
of documents, bitch!
Surveillance.
They got a whole thesaurus, a whole fucking dictionary.
They are coming for him with everything they've got. But does Durk actually stand a chance, or is this delay just prolonging the inevitable? Federal prosecutors are treating this case as one of the biggest hip-hop-related criminal cases in years. The first superseding indictment paints a picture of Durk as a criminal mastermind who ordered hits, funded violent operations, and used his OTF label as a front for organized crime. But some legal experts and fans believe the case against him isn't as strong as the government is making it seem. One major problem for the prosecution, most of the evidence against Durk is circumstantial.
No, it's not Fonny. Was it Lightfoot or some shit? Gave that nigga the key to the city.
Prosecutors claim this ties Durk to the crime, but his defense team can argue that multiple people had access to these cards. Just because someone used an OTF card doesn't mean Durk was personally involved.
That's
the message allegedly sent by Durk: "Don't book no flights or anything associated with my name." Prosecutors will argue that this shows he was aware of the murder plot, but Durk's legal team can flip it, saying it actually proves the opposite, that he was telling people to keep him out of whatever they were planning. Surveillance footage of OTF members meeting after the murder to discuss payments and music opportunities. The prosecution is using this to suggest that Durk paid for the hit. But if Durk wasn't physically present, it becomes harder to prove he directly ordered the attack. Some fans and legal analysts argue that without a smoking gun like a direct order from Durk, a confession, or someone flipping on him, this case isn't as airtight as it seems. While the prosecution is building a massive case, some fans aren't convinced that Durk will be convicted. In fact, a growing number of people believe the case against him is too weak to hold up in court. One Reddit user confidently stated, "Mark my words, Durk will walk. His co-defendants are in a lot more trouble, even if one ratted, because he almost certainly has a record, and defense attorneys will shred him on cross-examination." Other fans echoed this sentiment, arguing that there's no direct evidence tying Durk to the crime. Unlike the actual hitman, Durk wasn't physically there when the murder happened. Unless prosecutors have an undisclosed ace up their sleeve, proving he was the mastermind might be difficult. Using OTF credit cards isn't proof of guilt. Fans believe that multiple people in Durk's camp had access to the label's funds and resources. Just because someone booked a flight or rental car doesn't mean Durk approved it. Durk's cleanup image works in his favor. His lawyers can argue that he's been giving to charity, converting to Islam, and focusing on positive music like All My Life to distance himself from street violence. Another fan broke down the case further, stating, "Durk has about a 60 to 80% chance of walking away from this. The only thing that could potentially link Durk to the murder for hire is that one message about not booking flights under his name." The defense could argue that this was Durk telling them, "Look, whatever y'all got going on, I don't want to be part of it." This argument suggests that Durk's lawyers could flip the evidence on the prosecution, making it seem like he was actively trying to stay away from the situation rather than ordering a hit. But not everyone agrees. Other fans have pointed out that the feds don't lose, and if they're coming after Durk, they must have enough evidence to back it up. Could one of Durk's co-defendants flip? Right now,
but it's only had 230 gigabytes and 200 pages.
Charges alongside Durk have a choice: fight the case and risk life in prison, or take a plea deal and potentially testify against Durk. One of them, DeAndre D.D. Wilson, has already requested a pre-plea sentence report, a move that suggests he may be considering flipping. If Wilson agrees to testify, he could give the government exactly what they need to convict Durk. That's why Durk's legal team is nervous, watching every move the other defendants make. At this point, there are 4 major possibilities. A not guilty verdict, best case scenario for Durk. If Durk's lawyers successfully dismantled the prosecution's case, he could walk free. Given the complexity of the case, this isn't impossible, but it's rare for federal defendants to beat all charges. A plea deal, a likely outcome if the case looks bad for you. If Durk and his team realize they can't win at trial, they may negotiate a plea deal to reduce his sentence. But since this is a murder-for-hire case, even a plea could mean 20-plus years in federal prison. A conviction, worst-case scenario, life in prison. If Durk loses at trial, he's done. The murder-for-hire charge carries a mandatory life sentence, meaning no parole, no early release. If convicted, Durk may never see freedom again. A co-defendant flips and secures Durk's conviction. If one of Durk's co-defendants decides to cooperate with the feds, it could seal his fate. The government loves insider testimony. And if a former OTF member testifies against Durk, it will be nearly impossible for him to win. If Durk beats the case, it will be a historic victory for hip-hop, proving that federal prosecutors don't always win. But if he loses, it will send a powerful message that the feds are willing to take down the biggest names in rap, treating them no different than gang leaders or crime bosses. Even with the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars looming over him, Lil Durk refuses to let his career die. He's still making moves, his music still holds weight, and his name continues to spark conversations in hip-hop circles. The legal battle is intense, but that hasn't stopped Durk's team from keeping his artistic legacy alive. Before his arrest, Lil Durk was at the peak of his momentum. He was dropping fire singles, teasing collaborations, and setting the stage for one of the biggest rap releases of 2024. His album, Deep Thoughts, was originally slated for October 18th, 2024, a date fans had been counting down to for months. But when Durk was arrested, everything changed. At first, the album was quietly pushed back to November 22nd, something fans noticed when the release date was subtly altered on Apple Music. The move was frustrating for many, but still, they held on to hope that Durk's legal troubles wouldn't completely derail his music. Then, as things got worse, the release was delayed again, this time to March 2025. The frustration grew. Deep Thoughts had been hyped for nearly 2 years, with standout tracks like Turn Up a Notch, Monitoring Me, and Late Checkout keeping the streets fed in the meantime. The project was expected to be Durk's most introspective and personal album yet, reflecting on his rise, his losses, and the battles that come with success. Adding fuel to the fire, a fake track list leaked on October 1st, setting social media ablaze. Unexpected names like Kai Cenat, Morgan Wallen, and Sabrina Carpenter were listed as features, leading to heated debates over whether Durk was selling out and abandoning his traditional drill sound. Fortunately, Durk himself shut down.
Selling out is insane, bitch. They got him in fucking prison, bitch. Shit no selling out, nigga being fucking smart.
Makes the cut is Discontinuing Walk Hard, a collaboration with Drake that has been teased by DJ Academics and Aiden Ross. Academics even played a preview of what seemed to be the music video, only for fans to later speculate that Drake had been removed from the track. But after it was revealed that the leaked track list was fake, hope for the Drake feature was restored. Now, with Durk sitting in jail and Deep Thoughts on pause, fans are left wondering, will he get the chance to release it at all? Despite the chaos surrounding his case, Durk isn't going through it alone. His family has been by his side every step of the way, showing up to court, making public statements, and letting the world know that no matter what happens, they've got his back. One of the most visible supporters is his longtime girlfriend, India Royale. India was spotted outside the courthouse following his arrest, a moment that quickly spread across social media. Photos of her standing firm, waiting for updates, sparked a wave of reactions. Some fans praised her for sticking by Durk during his toughest moment, calling it a testament to their love. Others, however, downplayed it, saying that this level of loyalty should be expected from a committed partner. Why are we acting like this is something special? Every couple should act like this, one user on X, formerly Twitter, wrote. Others, however, weren't so sure how long her support would last. Let's see if she will stick to him during this hard time. Their relationship, which dates back to 2017, has seen plenty of ups and downs, including a brief breakup in 2022. But through it all, India has remained a crucial part of Durk's life, and her presence in court suggests that she's standing by him once again.
Get that 99 of life, nigga. I don't know how long she gonna stay around. Hey, shout out to KB Goes Live, a real one, man. We gonna look into his paperwork, man, see what they going, man. Y'all, he got rejected for a plea, his plea for a bond. Hey, we look at that paperwork.
All right, so it looks like we've got an update on this Lil Durk situation. Yesterday, we went over a motion that he filed to essentially have the superseding indictment against him thrown out. The argument in that was basically the prosecutors presented to the grand jury evidence in the form of a song that he recorded with Babyface Ray, and the version of this song that prosecutors showed the grand jury in order to secure the superseding indictment was a version that had Quando Rondo's vocals edited on top of it, where he was screaming out "no, no" after Lil Pab was shot.
Oh shit!
That motion was pretty much they showed the grand jury a fan edit, tried to say that that was proof that Lil Durk committed this crime and used that to get the indictment. Right? That's what they argued. Along with that, they also filed a motion to reconsider bond. Lil Durk has been denied bond multiple times, and it's pretty much been because the government looks at him as a flight risk. If you remember, when he was arrested, they caught him pretty much trying to flee the country. He had multiple flights booked going to multiple different places
Durk was on
in an
it.
effort to try to
he was a little too late on it. He was on it though.
Trail. And so because
Durk
of that, they have not wanted
Durk about to go to fucking the triangle, bitch.
A multi-million-dollar bond package, and the transcripts for what went down have been released. Okay, so we got this right here. This is basically just a cover page of it. And remember, this is the transcript that we're going over. So this is everything that was said in the courtroom. And basically, you got a lot of people from the United States Attorney's Office representing the government. And you got the Finling Law Firm, the law office of Christy O'Connor, and a few other people representing Lil Durk. And the first people to get to speak in this, obviously, is the government. And of course, they are going to be arguing for Lil Durk to remain detained. They say that the government submits that both flight and danger are ongoing and will believe that Lil Durk should be detained because of both of those reasons. Basically, they think he'll try to run, and on top of that, they believe he's a danger to the community. They say the government's positions are set.
Durk ain't gonna do nothing. Durk was just gonna go to motherfucking his crib and just stay church and be good.
For the fact that the defendant is a powerful and influential man. He has significant resources, as evidenced by the bond that was proposed in the bond package that he submitted. But this case is about how he's used that power, how he's used that influence, and how he's used those resources and used those things to promote and perpetuate violence with deadly consequences. Lil Durk is alleged to have committed this murder with other conspirators, hitmen, who Lil Durk orchestrated and caused to fly from Chicago and conduct a brazen, calculated murder in broad daylight outside of one of the busiest malls in the country at about 4 p.m. in the afternoon, with cars driving by. Machine gun fire rained down, attempting to murder a rival, ultimately striking somebody who was in the vehicle with that person. And by nothing short of a miracle, nobody else was killed during that encounter. The brazenness of the conduct, the allegations, the other information before the court warrant detention in this matter. There are no conditions or combination of conditions that can ensure
the only person that was supposed to get
or mitigate the risk of continued danger to both the community and witnesses in this case. The judge said you referenced pretrial services recommendations with regard to the risk of flight. Could you just give a bit more background to the reason why the government contends that detention is warranted here based on a serious flight risk? And the government said, so I think let's go back in time to some of what happened here. So following the murder, Lil Durk's co-conspirators were charged in an indictment, and on the day that that indictment was unsealed, the FBI conducted multiple search warrants, made arrests for those co-defendants, and Lil Durk was not yet indicted or charged in the case. But
so that's
booked, and the FBI received notice that Lil Durk was booked
he
on
found out that they got arrested.
Flights. Multiple of those flights were destined for Dubai, but at least one of those flights was destined to a non-extradition country. Lil Durk was ultimately arrested pursuant to a complaint at the airport, essentially prepared to board that flight with luggage and everything else. So they're talking about the flight that was going to the non-extradition country. That's where they found him. So the government submits that the evidence is Lil Durk's intent. As the walls were closing in, he attempted to flee. He attempted to board an international flight, and now he's fully aware of the FBI's ability to track flight records and track boarding records, and so the government believes that he's a sophisticated, smart man, to the extent that when he wants to flee, he's going to be able to do it by not just booking a flight and simply crossing the border just south of us. It's a couple-hour car ride. The judge said, all right, thank you. And he said, I will hear from the defense now. I've received a binder from the defense with 4 tabs with various documents, which was delivered to the court today, and I have reviewed all the materials, and I'll hear the argument from the defense. So let's get into what Lil Durk's defense attorney said. He says, Judge, in terms of Lil Durk's background, he grew up and was born and raised in Chicago on the south side in the Inglewood neighborhood. It is one of the most economically depressed neighborhoods in Chicago. Bitch. He was raised by a woman that is here in court today, LaShonda Woodard, who's in the first row here in the court in the white shirt. That's his mom, and she raised him along with his grandmother in the south side of Chicago. He was raised there in a home full of love and surrounded by 5 siblings. He had an older brother by the name of Dante, and he also has a father by the name of Dante Banks, who had, at a very early age in Lil Durk's life, got incarcerated when Lil Durk was only 7 months old. Lil Durk's dad was incarcerated up until a period of time a few years ago. Since Lil Durk's father has come home, he's a man of faith now. He is somebody that participates in his faith community and his family, and he's dedicated to his community in Chicago. He's worked with Chicago CRED, which is a gun violence reduction program that was started by former U.S. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan in Chicago. And essentially, Judge, growing up in Inglewood, Lil Durk was no doubt surrounded by violence, gangs, drugs, and music was his way out of that community. His mom talks about him writing at an early age, and it was his way to express himself about what he was feeling at the time and what he was going through in Chicago. And in around the time that he was 17, 18 years old, he started to make a name for himself. In 2012, him and his older brother started a group called Only the Family, which was fittingly named Only the Family because it was him and his older brother. And in 2013, Def Jam Records signed Lil Durk to a multi-record deal that ultimately allowed Lil Durk to move out of Chicago, move his family out of Chicago, and he moved to Atlanta and Fulton County, where he lived for a couple years. Once he was in Fulton County, and Judge, you do have a pretrial report that has a criminal case from Fulton County. We've shared the documents from that case. It was a dismissed case, but ultimately we've shared documents both with the government and pretrial services that show that after Lil Durk was arrested in that case, he was arrested with a couple of co-defendants, but he stayed in strict compliance with Judge Farmer's orders in that case. He was initially set 2 conditions that included GPS monitor, curfew, reporting no contact with witnesses, and because of his strict compliance, Judge Farmer over time eased the conditions. He allowed Lil Durk to continue to engage in gainful employment as a musician and a recording artist. He traveled with the consent and permission of the court, both in this country and also internationally, and since that time, he's moved out of Chicago. He's traveled extensively for business purposes, Judge, and the judge said, let me just ask a question with regard to you mentioning that he was being supervised by the court or under supervision of the court in Fulton County. Was he under the supervision order at the time of the conduct that is alleged in this case? Durk's attorney said, we had just looked at the documents. I think ultimately the declination, the prosecution happened in October of 2022. The allegation that is at the heart of this case is from about 2 months earlier, August 19th, 2022. I think he was still under supervision at that time, Judge. Oof, that's not a good look. They was trying to use that case from Fulton County like, look, he complied completely with everything that the court wanted him to do, and there was no problems when he was released. And the judge is like, hold on, was he still under supervision when this murder took place? And he was, bro. Oh my God. Durk's attorney said, Judge, obviously we contest his involvement in what he is charged with in this case, but Judge, I think at the time it was the district attorney in Fulton County was in the process of essentially dismissing that case. But in that case, there was never a suggestion of any type of violation. And because he was doing so well with pretrial services, Judge Farmer there allowed him to travel, continue to support his family, and continue to engage in gainful employment. Also, Judge, in terms of his good works and his acts of service, he founded a foundation, a 501c3, which is a nonprofit organization called Neighborhood Heroes. The CEO of that foundation is here in court, Kevin Freeman, who's the gentleman raising his hand in the front row there. And some of the things that they did in Chicago and elsewhere was like in April of 2020 when they helped bring hot meals to the frontline workers in Chicago at Mercy Hospital. They helped feed thousands of families for Thanksgiving. 2021 and 2022. And they have encouraged education in communities in Chicago, Atlanta, and elsewhere for young people to be able to go to colleges and historic HBCUs and Howard University. They have allowed young people to be able to live their life to its full potential, like Lil Durk has done. Judge, his story, it's one of maturity. It's one of growth. It's one of trying to do better for him and his family. And Judge, that's all I have to say in terms of the personal aspect. I think Mr. Findling will follow up with some professional details. Mr. Findling gets up. He says, I do want to add some context. I know you asked Mr. Brayman, the previous attorney, about Fulton County. My law partner, Marissa Goldberg, and our offices are in Fulton County. That's where my career is. One of my daughters is a public defender there. My son was a public defender, so I know the county pretty well. And I just, for a second, want to give some context. That case that the government there in Fulton County, the district attorney's office, declined to prosecute is a case that takes RICO cases and gang cases very seriously. They seldom decline to prosecute a case. You may know from the news that they pursued a RICO case and continue to stand by a RICO case against a former president of the United States of America. They made national news with a 2-year trial in the YSL RICO case. They tried the YFN RICO case. All of these are gang-related cases where the attorneys, I can assure you, because we've been part of some of them, have begged for declining prosecutions. So it's quite a statement that she declined to prosecute this case. All right, so he's just adding context for the judge because they're the ones that brought up that case, and the judge punched a pretty big hole through it. He again hits on the fact that Lil Durk's father was in jail while he was growing up, how his life was hard, and he turned that into music. And then he said, so I want to, for the purpose of this hearing, talk about 2 important issues. The government, of course, took the position that they disagreed, and I'll get back to that in a second, with the pretrial services report. And respectfully, we disagree with the report because it finds a reason to detain our client. We think, as the package reflects, that he should be released with strict conditions on bail. But first, I want to talk about the appearance of Lil Durk as required, because nevertheless, the government contested that's something for the court to take into consideration. Again, respectfully to counsel for the government, I don't think that if he's released, there's nothing that we found that indicates that there's some concern that he's 2 hours from the Mexican border. I have not seen anything about that has to do with this case. However, it is true that Lil Durk, as so many people in his situation do, travels internationally. He is an international recording artist. He is an international recording artist, and I would tell you that he does, and he has flown to Dubai absolutely over the last 2 years, and there's reasons for that. One, of course, in 2019, after waiting to have a relationship and to be with his dad, other than the jail visits, his dad was out. His dad turned to the Muslim faith. He in turn embraced the Muslim faith with his dad, and of course, to many, the heartland of that faith is in the UAE, and he spent time there. But most importantly, that is a big part of his profession, having that relationship in the UAE. I will tell your honor that we come from Atlanta, a place that some people call the hip-hop Hollywood. It's impossible to get a flight because the music industry goes back and forth there. There is a big place for performances. Lil Durk has performed there, and if you haven't made it in his musical genre, that is an incredible place to make an income. I don't know what he's going on about Atlanta for, so it's not unusual, he says. And so the record is really clear that he has flown to the UAE. We don't deny that. We don't debate that. We don't fight that. In fact, he was just 4 days before he was taken into custody. He came back from being in London. This is referred to in some of the documents that you received. He was in the UK, and I want to tell the court why he was in the UK. He was there because Lil Durk, who is in our position, not a threat to the community, is not a threat to leave the jurisdiction, but respect the rules and the direction of the court, was in the UK as a guest of the NFL Chicago Bears. He actually was in a suite watching the game with the mayor of London and the mayor of Chicago. He was the guest of the Chicago Bears. He actually spent time with Roger Goodell, the commissioner. So these are the kind of people that have embraced him because of his community outreach. I don't see them people in court, but anyway, he comes back from the trip to the UK, and that's when he was, as your honor can see from some of the documents, that's when a search warrant for his phone was issued. Now, if he is so concerned about fleeing the jurisdiction of anywhere in the United States and heading for the Mexico border or heading for somewhere else when his phone is taken from him, if he's so concerned about what's going to be on that phone, then that's the time to leave. Man, I don't know what this attorney is going on about. But what does happen is exactly 4 days after his phone is taken by the government, by the FBI, so they can look into it.
I guess he's trying to say if he really trying to leave, man, he would have been done left.
Crowd in an arena, the United Arena in Chicago, for a birthday celebration for himself. It was sold out. He's in front of 19,000 people performing. So there was no fear on his part that they had his phone, and 4 days later, he's going to take off, but rather he does this performance. Honestly, this attorney sucks. He should fire this guy immediately. This is a terrible argument. What the fuck does any of that have to do with anything, bro?
Yeah.
Anyways, he continues. He says, and so I want to address for a second, the government told
a lot of
you
niggas ain't
that
never
there
did
was
Trump like
concern
this.
that he booked these flights. I will tell you that I agree with the government. What? There were reservations that were made because he was going to the UAE, and we've looked at the documents, and I want to share something with the court. I know the government wasn't specific, but looking at the original complaint and some of the documents, there was this belief that there was a reservation to Dubai, then there was a reservation to Switzerland, and ultimately a private flight. I will tell you, we've been trying to gather the private flight information, and it appears over approximately a 13-month period in time, he took as many as 24 private flights. Good decision or bad decision economically, that is part of the music industry. They keep the private flight companies, the charter flights, very, very busy. But specifically, I'll share, and I'm going to give a copy because I want to share this with the government so that we can correct their misunderstanding. This is an e-ticket. He gives the ticket to the judge. He said, and I think, but there was some confusion, and I know that our colleagues from the government are relying on agents to get them this information, so I don't think in any way this is a fault, deliberate, but you'll see that this was the ultimate destination was actually the UAE. So there was a flight from Florida to Newark to Paris, to Zurich, and then the third part of the ticket is Zurich to Dubai. For some reason, whoever researched this case for the government took the position that it.
Now, I don't think he's doing a horrible job, the attorney, but he's like, he's trying to make them feel like, okay, yeah, y'all do got some evidence that he was trying to leave, but
this was ultimately going to
you know what I'm saying? They do that all the time.
What happens is that Lil Durk has
so
got
ain't got no proof.
Life. Maybe he grew up under the
he always
most
do
dire
that.
of socioeconomic circumstances, but you'll see
he's
he was
a
only
good dude.
able to get a reservation for this
he's a good
24-hour
attorney.
track on economy, and he made a decision to ultimately book a private plane, and that's, as the government said, when he was taken into custody, unequivocally, he was taking that private plane, which was going to change in Europe, I believe, in Italy, but ultimately that he was going to the UAE as well. But there was no flight to Switzerland, and we have talked with everybody involved in his world, as it's not unusual for business folks to make reservations, then pick the flight that works best for them. He opted to, although he never got on it, to not sit in wherever it was in economy for the 24-hour track, but to fly private. We've done our own due diligence and been able to determine, again, in about a 12 or 13 month period, as many as 24 private flights were taken. So this is not something inconsistent with his lifestyle. The government's position is that Lil Durk, who's internationally known, internationally recognized, with his presence on everything on the internet, hard copy and magazines, TV, is going to go somewhere on the run, go on the lam, and when he does that, not only give up his career that he's built to escape poverty with so that he can provide for his family. You can see in the bail package, he's bought his mom a beautiful home that he's willing to put as part of the package to secure his appearance, but he's going to leave his wife. He's going to leave his 2 children he has with her and his 6 other children. He's going to leave 8 children that I know pretrial services dotted their I's and crossed their T's to know that he has always financially stepped up and assumed the responsibility of taking care of his children. He's going to leave his mom, who he gave his life to. He's going to leave his dad, who he waited 26 years so he can build a relationship with him, a relationship that was interrupted because in 2019 his dad gets out, and then we all get slowed down for 2 years from the pandemic. So he's finally first embracing this loving relationship with his dad, enjoying being part of the same faith together, but he's going to leave his dad, he's going to leave his wife, he's going to leave all of his kids, he's going to leave his career, he's going to leave the amazing community work that he's done, not just locally throughout the United States. I mean, this is, as we found, this isn't a hip-hop performer that gives away backpacks on Labor Day weekend and a few turkeys. This is an incredible amount of community service that he has done on a regular basis. He's going to give all that up, and I just think that there's nothing to indicate that, particularly with this new theory that he's going to Mexico, because I can't respond to that because I don't know anything about that. The other issue we have to address is whether or not he is a threat to the safety of any person and the community. This is an important issue and when we deal with him, let me just say this, Your Honor, based on what the government said, the government conflates him individually and him with OTF, only the family, which Mr. Brayman went into a little bit. I'm going to distinguish the two of those for you for a second. And first, I want to talk about him individually. This attorney cannot keep a straight thought. It is so annoying reading this dude's words. He said, Your Honor, if you look at the indictment, I'll tell you that the indictment, every time we read one of these, we kind of look for that proverbial smoking gun. And if you look at page 2 of the indictment, page 3 of the indictment, paragraph 6, it says, following the attempted murder of TB and the murder of SR, defendant Banks sought to commercialize SR's death by rapping about his revenge on TB with music that explicitly references audio from a news clip taken shortly after SR's murder when TB screamed no, no after seeing SR's
Lil
dead
Pappy,
body.
you know what I'm
And then
saying?
has the lyrics. Your Honor, can you look at the lyrics? I don't want to embarrass myself and try to do that. And so the big thing here is the proverbial smoking gun is that this indictment takes place. And months later, Lil Durk puts out a song to celebrate it and commercialize it immediately. When we got on the case, we heard from multiple people in the music industry that read about this because it became a big news story. The press loved this, him celebrating and doing that, and everybody said, hold on a second, when you do music, you don't just record a song, it's a long process, not unlike movies, right? We're here in LA, sometimes they'll make a movie in 2022 and it doesn't come out till 2024. It's the exact same thing with the music. Your Honor, that song was recorded approximately 8 months before that indictment took place. So this is something we went over yesterday in my video where they're trying to say that they used the false evidence to get the indictment in the first place, and they go over that for a minute. I'm not going to go over it again here because he basically just says what they said in their motion yesterday. In fact, eventually the judge tells him, man, you can continue to present this, but I think it would be helpful if you just focused your argument on the allegations that suggest the defendant presents a danger to the community. But Durk's attorney, Mr. Finley, continues to talk about this song and how it was used to get the grand jury indictment. And then finally, he says, but we have nothing presented by the government as part of this hearing that is showing any violent activity during this relevant time period by our client. I mean, I do these hearings relentlessly, and they're involving a shooting incident and a stabbing incident and a fighting incident. And other than some unknown incident that he's not charged with out of Chicago, there's no charges out of Chicago. Mr. Brayman has done a yeoman's job at trying to keep up with that. There's no apparent case in Chicago. We have nothing. The only thing that we are given is a dismissed case in Fulton County and somehow unknown persons that are cooperating, that's casting allegations at our client. Other than that, there's nothing of substance to indicate that he is the perpetrator of violent activity, and particularly because of this incident resulting in this case taking place in 2022. I mean, we're now in well excess of 2 years goes by, and there's nothing to indicate that there's anything hands-on that he's been involved in. The only thing that he's been involved in is what I'm about to now turn to, and that is, and you'll note that in one of our footnotes, an agent says something to the effect that he tries to distance himself by involving himself in community services, and that can't be anything further from the truth. From 2020 through this period of time, while there's nothing provable, substantive that the government could tender you to show that he's a threat to people, that he's violent, okay, we can do that, and we can show you exactly what Mr. Brayman was referencing, and that it is the robust community service that he's been involved in. He then goes through some community service work that Little Durk did from 2020 to 2024. Again, not talking about why he's not a threat. He apparently gave away a few backpacks, worked with medical workers, first responders. He says he's literally physically involved in extensive work with the community. That's provable. It's not hearsay. That's not coming from somebody that's trying to cut a deal and help themselves in whatever case that they have. That's provable work by business executives that have joined with him through this tremendous effort. He talks about how only the family isn't a gang, but it's a corporation. It was incorporated in 2012. He says that the COO of Sony and Alamo were in the courtroom supporting Durk, standing by his side. He said that they pledged that if he's able to put together a bail package, they will put up $1 million in cash to support him. He explains Lil Durk's record deal with Epic Records, a bunch of shit that has nothing to do with nothing, to be honest with y'all. And that's something that the government points
empty
out.
words to make them sound good,
My
right?
apologies to interrupt, but Your Honor, we stipulate that the defendant is a successful music artist. This case isn't about that. It's about his control over the label OTF and the violent crime that's the issue. They didn't have to request that he address the specific issue of danger. Mr. Findling says OTF is not a violent gang. It's a duly incorporated organization that has reached a relationship with other successful organizations like Sony, and says that he don't think Sony would do a deal with OTF if they thought they were getting in bed with a criminal organization. Says that he is a law-abiding citizen. He then spends 20 minutes talking about how OTF isn't a gang. He then talks about Lil Durk's education. He said, look at his education. It's in the report. He doesn't even have a GED. Argues that the court should be impressed because even though he doesn't have a GED, he was still able to find transactional lawyers to incorporate OTF as a label. He says, if you don't have money, then you have a problem trying to get bail. But if you have some money and you're trying to use it to create conditions that'll work, then the court should consider that. They say they already got a location picked for him. The court has the location, and even says that they're trying to create 24/7 security to make sure Lil Durk does right if he's let out. He says, I want the court to know that if the court thinks that all of that in their bail package is a threshold that they don't like and they want it to go up 12 notches and it takes them a month to satisfy what the court wants, they'll still do that. It then provides a copy of every single person employed at a security company they want to hire, saying that they've all been vetted for the court. They then request that if Lil Durk is released, he be allowed to record music and stay employed. He says they put up a combined $2.3 million worth of property in order for Durk to get out. They also made a multi-million-dollar cash commitment. And then he says that there are literally people in the business world that are here to stand behind Lil Durk that are making offers for if the court wants more money that they will put up on Lil Durk's behalf. So he said the offers are coming in. We literally put the pause button on it because we want to see if the court says, you know what, this is really good enough. Not many people can do something like this, but if the court says, given the facts and circumstances of the case, it needs X amount of dollars, then we'll take the time to reach that number. And he says, we think that this combination constitutes a sufficient bail package under this set of circumstances, and we're willing to entertain any suggestions or questions that the court might have. And then the government does add a little bit more. They say, so Your Honor, most of what counsel just articulated, I objected twice. I don't see it as responsive or relevant to the narrow issue before the court, whether or not conditions or combinations of conditions can reasonably assure the defendant's appearance or mitigate the danger to the community. So what essentially has been offered is Lil Durk has offered a small portion of his net worth and then sureties by other, including a corporate surety, and then a security company that's offering physical security. As the allegations of this case make abundantly clear, Lil Durk wasn't on the street pulling the trigger. He was the one who allegedly orchestrated it. Basically, he put out a hit. He gave the green light. He booked the flights. They talk about how he sent a text message where he said, don't put my name on those flights. And then they say, you know, the counsel didn't really address much of what the indictment actually alleges and instead focused on the portion that referenced rap lyrics. But we submit to Your Honor that the indictment is lengthy and includes allegations that show Lil Durk's significant involvement in the murder. And I mean, I have to kind of agree with her, man. Drew Findling did a terrible job combating anything that was brought up. The government says with that again, the murder was committed through intermediaries, and the physical surveillance company that counsel is offering to mitigate flight and danger really offers no mitigation to that. He could still, basically nothing about that prevents him from intimidating witnesses, instructing intermediaries, sending text messages, and so on and so forth. So the government stands by its briefing and requested the court detain the defendant. Drew Findling makes his last little piece of an argument by saying, in regards to the text messages, we're willing to surrender any telephonic communication devices. If there was a rule regarding the telephonic communication devices, we would abide by that. And then they close out and the court says this right here. All right, I have reviewed the materials that were presented. I identified at the beginning of the hearing, and I have also reviewed the materials that were submitted by the defense at the hearing, the e-ticket itinerary, and the receipt of the Neighborhood Heroes Foundation. It's like a printout from a slide deck that looks to be about 30 pages, okay? And based on the violations that are charged, with which the defendant is charged in the first superseding indictment, there is a presumption in this case that the defendant is both a danger to the community and a risk of flight. The defense has the burden of producing or proffering evidence to rebut the presumption, and the defense has proffered a considerable amount of evidence which the court has taken into consideration. The presumption does nonetheless remain in this case, although I will note that particularly with regard to the risk of flight, the defense has proffered considerable information. And I recognize the community service that is reflected in the documents that have been provided by the defense. The issue before this court, though, is very narrow, which is whether there are conditions or a combination of conditions that can reasonably assure the safety of the community as well as the appearance of the defendant as required. It's not an issue before this court whether the defendant is or is not a member of a gang or how his family organization is characterized. With regard to both flight risk and danger, based on all of the evidence, I do find that there is no condition or no combination of conditions that will reasonably assure, first of all, and most significantly, the safety of the community and any other person. And this is, of course, based primarily on the allegations in the first superseding indictment. And although the allegations are not that the defendant personally pulled the trigger, the allegations are that the defendant exercised a significant amount of control over other individuals and that those individuals were acting at his direction. And I agree with the government that the presence of a security company providing security for the defendant is not going to address the significant concerns with regard to the safety of the community here. The security company would be acting at the direction and under the guidance of the defendant. And so I do not find that that addresses issues regarding dangerousness. With regard to serious risk of flight, that is a closer call. I recognize the pretrial services concludes that there are conditions that can be set that would address the significant risk of flight. However, I disagree and find that there is no condition or combination of conditions that will reasonably assure the defendant's appearance as required, given the fact that the record is replete with evidence that has significant resources and ability to leave the jurisdiction. Whether it is for an entity that is U.S. government can engage in extradition proceedings with or not, he has the ability to clearly and resources to leave this jurisdiction. The bond package, although significant, would leave the defendant with considerable resources in his own actions in this case, which suggests that upon learning that the charges were imminent and might carry a maximum sentence of life in prison, induced himself to make preparations, apparently hasty preparations, to leave the country. So for all of those reasons, the government requests for detention on both bases are granted, and I will issue a written order. And that is it for that hearing. It's pretty much everything that was said and went over. Lil Durk ain't coming home. That little bond package that they proposed didn't work. Lil Durk is going to stay in jail probably until his trial starts and concludes, but we'll have to wait and see. For now, that's what I got. That's it. That's the video. That's the whole story right there about this hearing that took place, and y'all gotta let me know what y'all think about it.
Look, Durk, he going through some issues, man. They tried it. They pull out all the stuff.
Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, tap the notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a video.
Alright, we're back. So, Lil Durk, man, in prison, man, and where he at, he should be alright. You dig what I'm saying? But, who want to be in prison for, 40 to 20 years? You get what I'm saying? That's your whole life, right? Sure. But he rich as hell. You know what I'm saying? So his fucking book's gonna be looking healthy. You know what I'm saying? He probably gonna be like, yeah, running some shit. Cause he got the books, he got the money on. You know what I'm saying? But also, that's a big risk factor because, who he is and his name can draw attention to him and unnecessary attention, and people might try to do some work just to try to get some money off this nigga. But that's for anybody. You know what I'm saying? No matter if you're rich or not. People will try to do anything just because you got a little name on you. Even if you don't have a little name on you, if they feel like they want to fuck with you, they gonna fuck with you. You know what I'm saying? So Crip, Northside, look, OTF Jam, man, really fucked up Lil Durk. They fucked up their own selves. Why would you put your whole everything using OTF card. That's crazy. A OTF card, a card to try to get your ass like to buy the supply and book the planes and shit, the stuff. Like this is insane. Crip. So we got that. He trying to fight. He really trying to fight against that situation, saying that hey, he don't even know what the fuck going on. He told him not to do it. Man, at the end of the day, man, the plea, we saw the paperwork for the plea. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't buying what they were selling. You know what I'm saying? He's a good guy. He been putting on for the community. He know these good people. He's this and that. He wasn't even trying to do that. He's an artist. You know what I'm saying? Basically, they were trying to say that he's an artist. Of course, he needs private planes and jets and shit to be going across the world just to, you know what I'm saying? Because that's what he do. He's an artist. But the judge was like, man, all these other deaths, and they were trying to say that he put no into his music video. We know when Quando Ronald was yelling about Lil Pab and shit. So it's just like they really trying to keep, because they trying to say that if he leave, that he gonna leave, or it's a risk to try to get other people out the paint. You know what I'm saying? Which Lil Durk don't need to be free for other niggas to get out the paint. Let's be honest, you did, Crip. But all you gotta do is be on some motherfucking Brick Baby and Loose Cannon shit. Be on some goofball shit. You gonna get whatever the fuck, like goofy ass niggas. But Lil Durk, you know, he might be doing some interviews from jail too. So I don't know what the fuck he might say. You know, these days, man, these podcasts and interviews, man, don't give a fuck about these artists, man. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, they don't try to get the new details. And man, I just feel bad for Lil Durk at the point, because, you know, so much shit happened. So many people died in this situation. And, you know, he's like probably like the one who was like the main nigga left outside of King Von and the other people that passed away. So, hey, man, you know, hopefully he don't have to do a lot of time when they can do time served like Young Thug. Who knows, man? But I hope y'all get a more understanding of this video. And we out this bitch. Hood, Northside, big crippin', gang, Northside shit.
Hey, Dad, you know, dog, when we link up, dog, this shit be legendary. You know this instrumental, you the engineer on it, so Kodak everywhere.